Greetings everyone, Craig Hester here with R2AWatches.com, and thank you for joining us again as we continue on our journey through all the watches that are available at R2AWatches.com. If you are watching this on YouTube, be sure and hit like and subscribe so you can get that update every time we post a new video. If you are watching this on Facebook, you want to join the closed group Vostok-Europe Timepieces, or VET. That is the absolute best place to find out all the information about what's going on with the watches at R2AWatches.com, so I encourage you to do that. Today, we are talking about the Expedition Underground Everest from Vostok-Europe. This watch has so much to talk about. I doubt very seriously I'll be able to cover it all in the time allotted today for a video that would make any reasonable sense of length about one watch. But there is so much to talk about in the Expedition Underground Everest. In a lot of ways, it is the epitome of everything that Vostok-Europe has to offer in terms of just the across-the-board number of features and where it fits into the brand and how available it is to so many different people in terms of styles of colors and so forth, and what you would be looking for in features and so forth. If you're not familiar with Vostok-Europe, Vostok-Europe is a boutique watch brand based in Vilnius, Lithuania. Every watch is 100% designed and hand-assembled at their facility there in Vilnius, Lithuania. They have 7 full-time watchmakers that hand-assemble every watch. They have their own in-house designers. I like to say that Vostok-Europe starts with a blank piece of paper, or more accurately, a blank computer screen, and finishes with a completed watch because everything is 100% custom, like a bespoke tailored suit, as opposed to buying off the rack. Their watches are built for going to extremes. That is their slogan, and it absolutely fits because they build primarily professional grade dyed quality watches or higher that are really built for extreme sporting conditions. And the Expedition Underground Everest is no exception in terms of being in that category of being a true professional grade watch. Now, every Vostok-Europe has a story. In this particular case, the story is the Expedition Underground Everest. This is actually the 4th watch in the Vostok-Europe lineup to be honored with the name Expedition. In fact, Expedition goes back to the very beginning of Vostok-Europe. The first Expedition watch was the Expedition Trophy, which was a race across Russia. Then there was the Expedition Around the World, which was what it sounds like, a race around the world. And Vostok-Europe was the official timekeeper for those races. Once those came to an end, then Vostok-Europe moved to the inspiration of the Expedition North Pole 1, which I'm not going to go into the details about what is it was a floating ice station from the North Pole, and you can find out more about that at our YouTube channel, R2A Watches, or R2AWatches.com. But that has been a staple of the Vostok-Europe lineup for many years now. One of the more affordable entry-level watches is the Expedition North Pole 1. And then, now a little more than a year ago, came the Expedition Underground Everest. Now, the Expedition Underground Everest is based on the same case as the Expedition North Pole, with a couple of very important differences. This one adds onto the case a unidirectional 120-click rotating bezel, which does make this truly a professional grade timepiece for diving. And then it also added tritium tubes and a sandwich dial, which never existed in the North Pole 1 and does in the Expedition Underground Everest. Now, why is it called the Expedition Underground Everest? Where does that story come from? Well, about 6 years ago, roughly, a team of speleologists from Lithuania. Now, I say speleologists very much on purpose because these were scientists. They weren't just spelunkers. They went into the Krubera Cave. Now, the Krubera Cave is a cave in Georgia, the country, not the state. It is known as the deepest cave in the world. It is actually referred to as the Underground Everest because it is, in terms of known caves, it is the deepest known cave in the world. This team of speleologists, about 6 years ago, they spent about 59 days in that cave. Whoo! And they broke the world record for the deepest cave dive, 2,197 meters that they went down. Now, that's well over a mile, guys. And when they broke this record, they were wearing Vostok-Europe watches. They were actually wearing in-one rocket watches at the time. This watch didn't exist. 5 years later, Vostok-Europe decided that they wanted to do a commemorative edition of that great feat of that group of speleologists, and out of that was born the Expedition Underground Everest that you're looking at here. Now, The version that I am sharing with you today is the version with the YM8J multifunction quartz hybrid movement from Seiko Epson, and I'm going to spend a lot more time talking about that a little bit later. There is also an automatic mechanical version of the Expedition Everest that has a power reserve indicator, and it's a very different watch and in terms of movement and function, and it's also, again, an automatic mechanical as opposed to a quartz hybrid, and I'll talk about what hybrid means in a minute. And those we are going to talk about in another video, and you can actually find a longer video from Basel a couple of years back where we cover every single watch in the Expedition Everest. But today we are talking about these with the YM8J movement. Now I want to quickly go through the 4 styles that have that movement. First of all, we have the Sunray Blue, which is just a gorgeous blue dial with the fantastic blue PVD plating on it, and it is a two-tone with the matte stainless. Then we have the Safety Yellow with the Black Pvd, which this is one that's just going to scream off your wrist if you really want to get attention. Then we have this really unusual color combination. I am at a loss as to actually what to call this blue. I'm welcome any comments, anything in the comments section on YouTube or on Facebook as to what you would call this blue, but it is really not a blue. It's almost like a purpley color. I know Igor Zavosky, the managing director of Vostok-Europe, will kill me for even remotely saying the word purple anymore in relation to colors on a watch, but it is definitely not your traditional blue on here, and it goes fantastically with the yellow, with the pop of yellow that you've got in the accents of it, and the Black PVD. And then I am wearing the traditional Vostok-Europe colors of the red and black, and this gives you an opportunity to see it on the wrist. This is a 48mm timepiece. I have about a 7.5-inch wrist. I do not have a very big wrist, but I can wear this watch comfortably. But again, this is by no means a small watch. And in fact, I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to show you right on the caliper so we can see, and there's no question about it being just my memory. There you go, 47.9. So you're definitely right at 48mm. And then it is 17.6 millimeters thick. So it is just a very substantial timepiece. Now, it is not the largest watch, believe it or not, that Vostok-Europe makes. That would be the Lunico 2. But this is certainly not a watch for people who are looking for small or traditional size timepieces. There is a beautiful etching on the case back of one of the speologists entering the Krubera cave. I love the case back work that Vostok-Europe does. It is just beautiful. And then one other little thing that I like to point out on the Black PVD versions, and actually on the red and black, is the little pop of color that they put on the top pusher here. It just adds so much. It's just one of those little design touches that you just wouldn't necessarily think about making so much of a difference. But if you can imagine this being just black, you can see how much that little pop of color really does make a difference in the overall impact of how the watch looks. So now I'm actually going to go through all of the functions of the YM8J movement on the Expedition Underground Everest watch from Vostok-Europe. Now, as I mentioned before, this is what you would call a hybrid quartz movement. By the way, I'm going to show my age and show that I actually do need my reading glasses to get really in here to show, so I can see all the details and make sure that I tell you correctly how to operate this. So as I mentioned, this is a hybrid quartz movement. That means that it has mechanical parts and jewels. It is actually the movement itself. If you just bought the movement, actually costs more than a lot of mechanical automatic movements on the market. This is a true high-end, high-quality, multifunction quartz movement in here by Seiko Epson. So the first thing you want to do when you are going to work with the functions of the watch, let me quickly tell you what the functions are. You've got a 24-hour chronograph, can measure up to 24 hours time. You've got a 24-hour countdown. You've got a world time alarm, and you have a world time function. Then also you have the day of the week and the date. So there's a lot of functions on this watch. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you are in regular timekeeping mode. Now, this bottom pusher that you see here, this is the pusher you would normally use to reset the chronograph. Now, actually, to be clear, you are going to use this to reset the chronograph on this watch when you're in chronograph function, but it is also your mode mover, or something along those lines. Mode mover. That sounds like, I don't know, some kind of earth moving equipment. Anyway, it is the button you push to move the watch through its various modes. Now, I've got the crown fully in. You're going to see that to get to regular timekeeping mode, I'm going to push this button, and now you see that it has moved to the day of the week for Sunday. All right. That means once it's showing the day of the week that you're in what you would consider just regular timekeeping mode. Okay. So that's why the second hand is now ticking. When you're in regular timekeeping mode, the chronograph or full sweep second hand becomes your standard regular continuous sweep second hand. Now, if I push the mode button again, I'm going to move the chronograph. Now you're going to see that then everything then is going to index right up to the 12 o'clock or 24-hour position. This is now going to function like a standard elapsed time chronograph. You're going to press the start button at the top. The chronograph is going to start. You have your split second, your 1/20th of a second split second down here on the bottom of the bicomplex. The chronograph sweeps here, and then you can measure up to 24 hours of an event. You're going to stop, reset. Now I'm going to push the mode button again. Now I am moving into countdown mode. You can count down up to 24 hours. Now, you're going to notice that when I did that, this did not index up to 24. That's because you actually set the time that you want the countdown to start. Now, how you do that, and you can set it for any time you want, but the most logical thing, at least the assumption would be that you would set it at the local time so that you can measure up to 24 hours going backwards. When it gets to the end of the 24-hour cycle, it's going to beep. But you could use it if you were putting a turkey in the oven and you wanted to set this and know that you're going to count down 4 hours. You just got to pay attention to when it reaches the end of the 4 hours. You're going to pull the crown out to the first position. And then you're going to be able to use the top pusher to go backwards, to go counterclockwise on the upper. This is where you're keeping the time for the 24-hour countdown on the 24-hour dial up here, or the bottom to go forwards. Now we're at 9:20 in the morning. So we're going to come around to I'm going to try to right about 9:20. Now, when I push this back in, when I hit the top pusher now, it's going to start going backwards or counterclockwise. That's because it's now counting down 24 hours starting from the current time. Now keep in mind, this hand is always on the 24-hour scale. So the hour hand here only goes around this subdial once every 24 hours. So you're going to have the countdown of up to 24 hours. Stop. Reset. Now, what comes next? We're going to move the mode. I'm going to move the hands out of the way a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. I'll put this back in place. Now, I went back to regular timekeeping because I pulled the crown all the way out. So I'm going to come back. I'm going to move the mode now, and you'll see there's a little WT here for world time alarm, and you're going to see on and off. This is where you toggle back and forth with the top pusher to whether you want the alarm to be on or you want the alarm to be off. Okay. Now to set the alarm, you're in this position. You want to make sure that the mode is in this position, either on or off. You can set the alarm, but I'm going to put it in the on position. You pull out one. Now the bottom pusher is going to set the bottom pusher is actually going to set the time that you want the alarm to be on the 24-hour scale. You can see how I'm moving the 24-hour scale up there. Now, as opposed to when you were setting the when you were setting the countdown where you could go back and forth on there, the top pusher is then going to move to what time zone by city do you want the alarm to be set in. So let's just say for the sake of this one, you want the alarm to be set in Vilnius at 3:15 is what this would be, 3:15 in the morning. If you set this the way it's set now, who wants an alarm to go off at 3:15 in the morning? I don't know, but we're going to leave it at that. Then you push the pusher back in. You have now set the alarm. Now we move to the next mode, and we are back to regular timekeeping mode. In regular timekeeping is where you can set and view the world time. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you've got your watch set that it knows what your local time is. Again, you're going to pull the crown out, and we are now going to tell it where we are. So in this particular case, first you have to wait for it to finish its dance. I already had it set to New York City because we're in the New York time zone, but I'm going to bring it back around so you can see what I'm doing. So I am now setting to tell the watch that the local time zone we're in is the New York time zone. Then you use the bottom pusher to set the time properly for New York. So we're going to come back around and we're going to set this to 9:15. So just just bear with me here. 6, 7, 8, 9, 15-ish. So we have now set the local time. This is the local time for our world timer. We push it back in. Now, when you hold the top pusher in, you're in regular timekeeping mode. You hold the top pusher in. It's not going to start the chronograph because you're not in chronograph mode. You hold the pusher in, and now you can go to what city do you want to see what time it is. So now I moved it to Vilnius, and it's going to show us the time in Vilnius compared to the local time because it knows that the local time is New York City. If I hold this in again, I can move to Moscow, and so on and so forth. And you can see how it moves an hour ahead every time, telling me what the time is in any time zone in the world compared to the local time that I put it in there. Now, if you leave this, let's bring it back around to Vilnius, and let's say that we want Vilnius to be the other time zone. If you leave this set like that, okay, while you're in regular timekeeping mode, that means that this subdial is going to be constantly giving you the time in Vilnius. Now, but the second hand is going to start sweeping. It's not going to mark the city that you're at. If you want to double check which city you had it compared to, again, you just push this in. It's going to stop at Vilnius, oddly enough. And we push it in again. Comes back around to Vilnius, tells you that that is the local time in Vilnius. So those are the main functions of the YM8J movement that are in the Expedition Underground Everest from Vostok-Europe. Let me quickly show you again. We have the yellow with the black PVD. We have the blue, this really beautiful blue with the radiant sunray dial. We have the black with a little bit more of a matte on the dial, the black and red, which is your classic Vostok-Europe colors. And then we have what I'm now calling the lavender. I'm open to suggestions for what color we would refer this to with the black PVD and the yellow offset accents. Just a couple of other things. They are all, let me just double check. Yep, they're all 20 ATM, so they're all truly professional grade dive quality watches at 20 ATM or above. They have a 120 click, and by the way, it is a just butter smooth unidirectional rotating bezel on this. And the unidirectional rotating bezel so that you would only reduce time, not pick up more if you were to bump it while you're diving. This also has the tritium tube technology. You can see this is the first time, I believe, ever that Vostok-Europe has done a sandwich dial. And you can see that the tritium tubes are on the lower dial of the sandwich dial, which really does make for a really cool look on the dials for these, particularly the black and yellow offsets on this particular one. By the way, if you really want to go loud with yellow, with the full safety yellow, there is a silicone option in the yellow, in the matching yellow, if that's something that you're interested in, because then you really would have a watch that people would notice on your wrist. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I'm just going to quickly tell you the tritium tube technology gives you the constant illumination. They are laser sealed glass tubes made by a company in Switzerland called MB Microtech. They are filled with a substance called tritium that constantly agitates the luminous material inside the tubes so that you get constant illumination. You don't have to charge them up in the sun. We have a lot of information about that at other places on our website and on our YouTube channel at R2A Watches. So I'm not going to go into that into great detail. That's just the basics of that. Also, this does have the Gorilla Glass system, or K1 mineral system, that puts you right on the Mohs scale between sapphire and mineral, sapphire being a 9, the mineral being a 5, the K1 mineral system are Gorilla Glass, so you get nearly the scratch resistance of sapphire and nearly the shatter resistance of mineral, which is the best of both worlds for a sport watch like this. And this is actually a nearly 4 millimeter thick crystal on this. So that again just shows you the caliber of construction that Vostok-Europe puts into every watch. So there you have it. This is the YM8J Expedition Underground Everest from Vostok-Europe. I hope that you've enjoyed this. I know this one's been a little bit longer than a lot of our videos, but there is so much to talk about on this, and I really did want to go through all the really great functions that this movement has in this video. And hey, until next time, I'm Craig Hester with R2AWatches.com, and keep watching.